Greetings. I am the monitor of Installation 04. I am 343 Guilty Spark.
The Halo franchise has never been particularly good at making entertaining boss battles, but the final confrontation in Halo 3 is largely considered to be one of the worst in all of gaming. Weapons you brought in being useless, being forced to use a particular weapon, and the battle being so easy a caveman could do it, the list of complaints is long and valid. But here at Fairly Critical, we review stories, not video game mechanics. And as a conclusion to a story, we think this battle deserves a lot more respect than what most people give it. In fact, if you choose to look at the fight as an interactive cutscene rather than an actual boss fight, you may just think it is one of the best in the series. I am your host Jacob, and this is why Halo 3's final boss battle is actually amazing. The battle takes place near the end of the mission Halo, which is itself the climax of the game's story. We fight through hordes of undead monstrosities controlled by the ultimate enemy for a shot to end it all. Fire the Halo and kill the Gravemind. If all goes according to plan, we will ride off into the sunset and be home before dinner. But don't forget that this isn't just the final mission of the game, it is the final mission of the trilogy. And all characters involved have a deep-seated history with both the setting and each other. The Halo ring you are on is a replacement for the ring that the Master Chief and Cortana destroyed way back in Halo Combat Evolved, and the mission map is a faithful representation of this. Many of the rooms and buildings are slightly altered replications of the ones we traveled in back in Combat Evolved, and the facilities are both housed in snowy canyons. Even the Warthog run at the end is a callback to the Warthog run in the first game. To destroy the first ring, Chief and Cortana had to fight against 343 Guilty Spark, who was the original ring's custodian and ultimately failed to protect it. That ring's destruction is what led to Thel 'Vadamee being branded a heretic and taking up the mantle of Arbiter, a choice that would eventually lead to him turning against the Covenant. Sergeant Johnson was also present during the battle on the original ring, and is in fact the only other human survivor of the battle currently living other than the Chief. This new ring represents a lot of trauma and bad memories amongst all the characters at play, but they all soldier forward to complete the task at hand. Chief and Arbiter fight all the way to the control room with help from Johnson, and just when you think that you've won, Spark turns on you.
No promises, but initial results indicate this facility should be ready to fire in just a few more days.
We don't have a few more days.
But a premature firing will destroy the Ark.
Deal with it.
Will destroy this installation. Unacceptable! Unacceptable! Absolutely unacceptable!
Spark turning on the party to protect this new ring is perfectly in keeping with his character. While you could argue that this is a little short-sighted for him to turn on the team and risk the Flood gaining control of the ring, you have to remember that Spark has always been a little unstable and erratic. There is even lore that suggests he is slowly succumbing to rampancy, a condition in the Halo universe in which artificial intelligences begin to degrade and act violently and illogically. Now, most of that lore was added after Halo 3 was released, specifically in the terminals added to Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary by 343 Industries in 2011. But even in the original release of the game, Spark was never portrayed as exactly stable. In the mission The Library, it constantly talks to itself while floating along, referring to itself as a genius and repeatedly greeting the Chief as if it forgot that he was there. And when the Chief refused to activate the Halo, Spark began resorting to increasingly violent and short-sighted methods to prevent us from escaping the ring. When Chief and Cortana attempt to blow up the Pillar of Autumn to destroy the ring, Spark makes every attempt to prevent this, even though it could result in the Flood repairing the vessel and breaking the containment of the ring's surface. Spark turning on us is also subtly hinted at throughout Halo 3. When Spark is revealed to us, the Chief is weary of it until Spark uses its hardlight beam to eliminate a Flood combat form, which is the first time we learned that it had this combat ability. Of course, Chief being weary of Spark is understandable, since the last time they met,
you tried to kill Cortana. You tried to kill me.
Of course, Chief gets over it, so we, the audience, write it off for now. But then Spark zaps the Marine outside the silent cartographer.
Oracle!
Little bastard stung me.
It is another thing that we could easily write off, but that is a hallmark of all great twists. They are hinted at in subtle ways that can be explained away or disregarded until the twist is revealed and all the dots connect. I remember the first time I played Halo 3, I immediately turned my gun on Spark when I heard the Marine call out in pain, because I was very mistrustful of it. Bungie did an amazing job at slipping these moments into the plot where the uneasy feelings we should have when working with Spark would manifest. But what is perhaps more masterfully done is a subtle reinforcing of Spark's motivations throughout the story. Going back to when Spark and Chief meet again, it tells Chief that its only purpose is to help him.
Protocol dictated my response. She had the activation index, and you were going to destroy my installation. You did destroy my installation. Now I have only one function, to help you, Reclaimer, as I always should have done.
But that is easy for it to say now, because it no longer has a conflicting priority. The ring was destroyed, so all it has left now is to help Chief. And even then, as it goes throughout the campaign, it doesn't ever act with a sense of urgency. Sure, it helps the Chief and the Arbiter when requested, but it never does so with anything other than amiable compliance. Contrast that to the near desperation it exudes after it realizes that a replacement Halo ring is being constructed.
Spark, move.
We must get past that barrier, or the method will destroy it all.
Later in that same mission, it encourages Johnson not to shoot down the Sentinels because they have a priority to take care of. When asked why, it evades the question by stating it isn't sure, and slyly tries to get the humans and elites permission to investigate further. And when the Flood lands on the Ark, it demands the elites take him to a vantage point to inspect the possible damage to the Ark. But I think we can all guess what its actual concerns are, especially since it quietly risks being captured by the Flood in order to secretly observe the ring's condition.
Replacement. The ring you destroyed.
When did you know?
Just now, but I had my hopes.
And just before it turns on Johnson, it decries destroying the Ark, but it doesn't turn on the team until it contemplates losing yet another ring. I know that a lot of players don't like that any weapons or equipment you bring in the fight are rendered useless. This is especially an odd choice in a gaming franchise that is well known and loved for giving players multiple ways to attack a problem. But again, don't think of this as a boss fight. Think of it as an interactive cutscene. We know from our attempts to attack Spark in Combat Evolved that it is impervious to rockets and small arms. Or you do if you were like me and mag dumped a full 60 rounds and several rockets into it out of sheer hatred. So no weapons or equipment we could have brought into the fight should be useful, or it would create a plot hole. And beyond that, pointlessly shooting at Spark to no effect makes it seem like Chief is really in danger. Something not easy to do with the super soldier that is the Master Chief. I remember feeling quite panicked the first time I played this mission and realized I was low on ammo and not seemingly doing any damage. And I also remember the feelings of shock and relief when Johnson blasted Spark. Johnson saving Chief is important from a narrative standpoint. The first time we meet Johnson in Halo Combat Evolved outside of a cutscene, the Chief has to save him and his fire team. Chief is constantly bailing Johnson out of situations, especially in Halo 3. Chief and the Arbiter rescue Johnson from brutes in the jungle at the beginning of the game. One mission later, Chief has to fight his way back into the control room of a military facility to set off a bomb because Johnson and his squad were forced to retreat. And once again, Johnson is captured by brute forces in the mission to Covenant, and Chief has to do his job for him. I'm not trying to say that Johnson is inept by any means. In the Expanded Universe writings, Johnson is a prodigious fighter and one of my favorite characters. And it is worth noting that the reason he was in the jungle at the beginning of the game was to rescue the Master Chief. The reason I bring up all of these encounters in which the Chief rescues Johnson is to highlight the amazing opportunity he gets to repay Chief in this battle. Johnson finally getting the chance to save Chief by blasting Spark with a Spartan laser is quite poetic. It was meaningful when the game released in 2007, and it was made even more meaningful after the book, Halo Silent Storm, was published. In Silent Storm, we learn that Johnson and the Master Chief were both assigned to an operation that took place in the year 2526. Johnson was brought onto the operation by Naval Intelligence and Fleet Comm to mentor the young Petty Officer 117 and the rest of the Spartan 2s attached to the operation. Johnson showing Chief that Spark was vulnerable to Spartan lasers was awesome as is, but now it is darn near heartwarming when you think that Johnson has been showing Chief how to get the job done since near the war's beginning. The first time Johnson told me to kick Spark's ass, my 12-year-old brain immediately shifted from a state of fear to one of righteous fury. But even if you aren't as emotionally connected to the events as I am, you can find it somewhat fitting that Johnson is the one to give Chief the weapon, since he has been doing it throughout the series.
I need a weapon.
Right this way. I brought this motivational device.
While it does admittedly seem strange that Spark just sits there and lets Chief blast him again and again, I would argue that flying around quickly and trying to make the player miss would almost take away from the cathartic experience. By the nature of Spark being so easy to defeat, blasting him into pieces is absolutely merciless, and it is extremely satisfying. It was a major antagonist in the original game, and the object of much annoyance even when it was on our side, and we just watched it gun down Johnson a few moments later. Merciless is exactly how I want Spark's ending to be. You could argue that there should be additional enemies like Sentinels coming down and supporting Spark, but I think that would detract from the moment. Bungie isn't giving us a challenging boss fight, they are giving us the opportunity to ruthlessly dismantle a character we have wanted to destroy since the very beginning. They are giving us a gift. I understand that this boss battle is bad from a gameplay perspective, but from a story perspective, it is hard to think of a better ending for the Spark arc. This entire mission was about bringing the story that began in Halo Combat Evolved full circle, and I think it did that beautifully. From feelings of shock and fear when it first begins, to vengeful wrath when Johnson hands us the laser, and finally to grim satisfaction at the sight of Spark blowing up in front of me, this battle made me feel all the right emotions at the right times, something that is incredibly important in a story's climax. While things could have been changed to make it more entertaining to actually play, it would also risk making it feel less striking from a story perspective. And frankly, I just wouldn't want to risk that. But let me know in the comments section what you think. Did you appreciate the interactive cutscene, or did you think it was just a bad battle? And while you're there, please give a like to this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel for more story reviews and analysis of video games, movies, and television shows. For Fairly Critical, I've been your host, Jacob. Thank you all again for supporting the channel, and I will see you in the next one.
Every core computers now have primary control of critical vehicle functions.
Collectively, all the 7.
Please, don't shake the light bulb.